still remember the exact moment I realized Marcus wasn't just my manager. He was going to be a problem. It was a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks into my role as senior data analyst at Cortland Financial Services. I'd come from a smaller firm where mistakes were learning opportunities, where senior staff helped junior staff grow. I thought all professional environments worked that way. I was wrong. The mistake itself was minor. I'd sent a client report with an outdated revenue projection. The numbers were from the previous quarter instead of the current one. The client hadn't even noticed yet. I caught it myself during my morning review and immediately flagged it to Marcus before our 9 a.m. team stand-up. "Hey Marcus, quick heads up," I'd said, standing at his desk. "I need to resend the Henderson report. Used Q2 numbers instead of Q3. Already have the correct version ready. Should I send it now or wait until after the meeting?" He looked up from his screen. Smiled. That smile should have warned me. "Let's discuss it in stand-up," he said. "Good that you caught it." I nodded, relieved. See? Professional environment. Collaborative problem solving. The stand-up meeting had 12 people. Our entire analytics division, plus 2 people from client services who joined to discuss upcoming deadlines. We gathered in the conference room, everyone with their coffee, settling into chairs around the long table. Marcus started with the usual updates: project timelines, client feedback, workload distribution. Then he shifted in his chair, and his tone changed slightly. "Before we wrap up, I want to discuss something important," he said. "Quality control. Specifically, the importance of accuracy in client-facing materials." I felt a small flutter of unease, but told myself I was being paranoid. This morning, I was informed that the Henderson quarterly report, which went out yesterday, contained incorrect data. He paused. Let that sit. The revenue projections were from the wrong quarter. Completely inaccurate information sent directly to a Fortune 500 client. The room went quiet. People glanced at each other. Now, the client hasn't raised the issue yet, which means we have a small window to correct it before it becomes a credibility problem. But I want everyone here to understand something. He leaned forward. We are trusted advisors. When we send something to a client, they assume it's been thoroughly checked. One mistake like this can damage relationships that took years to build. I sat there, my face burning, while 11 pairs of eyes tried not to look at me directly. Everyone knew whose report it was. The Henderson account was mine. "I'll be implementing a new review process," Marcus continued. "All client reports will now go through me personally before they go out. I know it adds a step, but clearly we need it." He didn't say my name once. He didn't have to. After the meeting, people filtered out quickly. Sarah from the analytics team touched my shoulder as she passed. "It happens," she whispered. Small comfort. I stayed behind, waiting until the room was empty except for Marcus and me. "Marcus, I appreciate the quality control focus," I said, keeping my voice level. "But I'd flagged that error to you before the meeting. I'd already fixed it. That felt less like a process discussion and more like... Like what?" He looked genuinely curious. I hesitated. "Like a public reprimand." "A reprimand?" He shook his head, started gathering his papers. "That wasn't a reprimand. That was leadership. If you felt singled out, maybe ask yourself why you're taking general feedback so personally. We all make mistakes. The question is whether we learn from them." He left the conference room. I stood there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened, trying to decide if I was overreacting. I told myself I was. First month jitters, cultural adjustment. Every workplace has its quirks. But over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. When I completed the meridian projection analysis 2 days early, a complex modeling project that usually took our team a full week. Marcus mentioned it in our team meeting by saying, "Good to see people meeting deadlines consistently." Not early. Meeting. When I identified a significant error in our forecasting algorithm that had been skewing results for months, potentially saving the company from bad recommendations, Marcus sent a department-wide email crediting the analytics team's attention to detail. No names, just the team. When I stayed until midnight to fix a data pipeline that broke right before a major presentation, ensuring Marcus had everything he needed by 8 a.m., he thanked me privately with a nod and, "Yeah, that's the job." But when I made any mistake, and everyone makes mistakes, it became a teaching moment, a team discussion, an opportunity for process improvement. 6 weeks in, I was starting to understand the dynamic. Marcus was 42, been with Cortland for 8 years, worked his way up from analyst to division head. He had good rapport with senior leadership, ran his meetings efficiently, always delivered on commitments. He was, by most measures, a successful manager. But he had a very specific style. He led through contrast. He needed someone to be struggling so he could be succeeding. He needed someone to be the cautionary tale so he could be the wise guide. And somehow, quietly, deliberately, I had become that someone. The others in the division had been there longer. They knew how to navigate Marcus. They knew when to speak and when to stay silent. They knew how to make their wins visible and their losses invisible. They'd learned. I was still learning. The breaking point came 3 months into my tenure. We were presenting quarterly insights to the executive team, the C-suite, senior VPs, the people who made decisions about budgets and strategy and careers. It was the highest visibility meeting our division had, and Marcus had spent weeks preparing. I'd built the entire data visualization suite for the presentation. Interactive dashboards, trend analyses, predictive models. It was some of my best work. Marcus had reviewed everything, made small adjustments, and seemed pleased. The presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That morning, Marcus called me into his office. "Quick change," he said, turning his monitor toward me. "I'm going to present the visualization section myself. I think it'll flow better coming from me, given I'll be doing the introduction and conclusion anyway." I stared at the screen. "You want to present my analysis?" "Our analysis," he corrected gently. "This is a team effort. You built the tools, I'm delivering the insights. That's how collaborative work functions." "But I know the methodology inside and out. If they have technical questions..." "I've reviewed everything thoroughly. I can handle questions. Besides, you'll be there. If something comes up that I can't address, I'll defer to you." He smiled. "This is a growth opportunity for you. Watch how I present complex data to non-technical executives. You'll learn a lot." I wanted to argue. I wanted to explain that this presentation was supposed to be my introduction to leadership, that Marcus himself had told me 3 weeks ago that I'd be presenting my own work, that this mattered. Instead, I said, "Okay." Because what else could I say? He was my manager. This was his call. The presentation went exactly as you'd expect. Marcus presented my work flawlessly. The executives were impressed. They asked smart questions. Marcus answered them using the technical documentation I'd prepared for him, never once indicating where the information came from. At the end, the CFO said, "Marcus, this is excellent work. Exactly the kind of strategic insight we need." Marcus nodded. "Thank you. The team has been firing on all cylinders." The team. Not me. The team. Afterward, back in the division area, Marcus gathered everyone. "Great job, people. That's how we do it. That's why Cortland trusts us with the big decisions." Sarah caught my eye across the room. She looked sympathetic. She'd seen this before. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine I wasn't drinking and my laptop open to a blank document. I started writing down everything. Every instance. Every pattern. Not out of anger. Not yet. Out of documentation. Out of a growing sense that I needed to understand what was happening to me. By midnight, I had 6 pages. Dates, times, specific quotes, witnesses, a chronicle of small erasures. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I was done being the cautionary tale. The decision to act came slowly, the way most important decisions do. Not in a flash of anger or a moment of clarity, but through accumulated weight. Through the quiet realization that nothing was going to change unless I changed it. I spent a week just observing, really observing, how Marcus operated, who he talked to, how decisions got made, where the real power structures existed beneath the organizational chart. Cortland Financial Services was a mid-sized firm, about 300 employees, but it had the complexity of something much larger. Multiple divisions, overlapping responsibilities, matrix reporting structures that meant most people had both a direct manager and a dotted line manager. It was the kind of place where informal influence mattered as much as formal authority. Marcus reported to Jennifer Caldwell, our VP of Analytics. Jennifer was sharp, strategic, and notoriously data-driven. She'd built her career on operational excellence and had very little patience for inefficiency or politics. She was also incredibly busy, managing 4 division heads and sitting on multiple executive committees. This was important, because Marcus's success depended partly on Jennifer not looking too closely at how he operated. He delivered results. His division hit its numbers. The work got done. As long as those things remained true, Jennifer had no reason to examine his management style. I started thinking about what would happen if she did have a reason. My first move was almost invisible. I started attending optional meetings. Not the ones Marcus ran, but the cross-functional ones. Budget planning sessions, process improvement workshops, those tedious hour-long discussions that most people avoided because they seemed like time wasters. I volunteered for the documentation committee, a group tasked with standardizing how different divisions recorded and shared their methodologies. It was exactly as boring as it sounds, but it gave me something valuable. Visibility with people outside Marcus's sphere, and legitimate access to how other divisions operated. During these meetings, I never complained, never mentioned Marcus. I just contributed. I asked good questions. I helped solve problems. I made myself useful. Within a month, people in other divisions knew my name. Not as Marcus's analyst, just as someone competent who showed up and did the work. The second move took more courage. I requested a meeting with Jennifer Caldwell. I did it through proper channels, sent a calendar invite with a clear subject line. Q4 Professional Development Discussion. I kept it vague enough to not raise alarms, specific enough to justify 30 minutes of her time. She accepted for a Wednesday morning, 3 weeks out. I spent those 3 weeks preparing. Not preparing to complain about Marcus. That would be career suicide. Preparing to present something else entirely. I built a comprehensive analysis of our division's workflow efficiency. Time spent on various tasks, bottlenecks in our review processes, the new approval layer Marcus had added after my Henderson report mistake. I quantified everything. How many hours per week the team now spent waiting for Marcus's review, how that compared to error rates before and after the new process, the opportunity cost. The data told a clear story. Marcus's additional review layer had reduced our output by 18%, while catching only 2 minor errors in 3 months. Errors that would have been caught anyway by our existing quality checks. But I didn't frame it as criticism. I framed it as optimization opportunity. The meeting with Jennifer was at 9 a.m. I arrived 5 minutes early, sat in the waiting area outside her office, and reviewed my notes one final time. "Come in," she called when her assistant signaled. Jennifer's office was exactly what you'd expect. Minimalist, organized. A standing desk with dual monitors showing spreadsheets and dashboards. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "So," she said, glancing at her screen where my meeting invite was presumably displayed. "Professional development. What are we discussing?" "Process efficiency," I said. "I've been doing some analysis of workflow optimization across our division, and I wanted to get your perspective before I developed it further." I walked her through my findings. I kept Marcus's name out of it as much as possible, focusing on the process itself rather than who implemented it. I showed her the numbers, the trade-offs, the costs. Jennifer listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "This is solid work," she said. "Have you discussed this with Marcus?" "Not yet. I wanted to get a broader perspective first. Make sure I wasn't missing something from a strategic level." "Smart." She studied the charts on my laptop screen. "Send this to me. I'll review it in detail and bring it up in our next division head meeting. This is exactly the kind of analysis we should be doing regularly." "There's one more thing," I said, and this was the risk. "I've been thinking about how we share best practices across divisions. Right now, each team kind of operates in its own silo. I noticed the forecasting division has a peer review system that seems more efficient than individual manager review. Might be worth exploring." Jennifer nodded slowly. "You've been talking to other divisions." "The documentation committee," I said. "It's given me exposure to different approaches." "Good. That kind of cross-functional thinking is valuable." She closed her laptop. "I appreciate you bringing this to me. Not everyone thinks at this level." I left her office with something I hadn't had before. A direct connection to Marcus's boss, established through legitimate professional channels. No complaints, no politics, just good work. 3 days later, Marcus called me into his office. "I heard you met with Jennifer," he said. His tone was casual, but his eyes were calculating. "Yes, I wanted to discuss some professional development goals." "And you presented analysis of our division's processes." She asked what I'd been working on. I showed her some efficiency analysis I'd done. She seemed interested. Marcus nodded slowly. "In the future, run that kind of thing by me first. Jennifer's busy. We don't want to waste her time with preliminary work." "Of course," I said. "I thought it was pretty well developed, but I'll keep that in mind." He dismissed me with a wave. But I saw something in his expression I hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. Just a flicker. The thing about people like Marcus is they're very good at managing down, controlling their team, shaping narratives, being the authority. But managing up is different. They need their bosses to see them as competent, in control, producing results. If their team starts going around them, even through legitimate channels, it suggests problems. It suggests they're not managing effectively. It suggests they might not have complete control. I wasn't trying to undermine Marcus. Not yet. I was just making sure I existed outside of his story about me. The real work started in month 4. Our division had a major project coming up, building a comprehensive risk assessment model for Cortland's lending portfolio. It was a 6-month engagement, high visibility, direct impact on revenue. The kind of project that could define careers. Marcus announced the team structure in our Monday meeting. He'd be the lead, naturally. Sarah would handle data integration. Tom would manage the statistical modeling. I would be doing quality assurance and documentation. Quality assurance and documentation. Support work. Important, but invisible. The kind of role that kept you busy, but didn't build your reputation. I nodded along during the meeting, took notes, asked no questions. That afternoon, I sent an email to Marcus. Subject line: Risk Model Project, Additional Capacity. Marcus, excited to contribute to the risk assessment project. I have some capacity beyond the QA and documentation work, and I've been developing some ideas around stress testing methodologies that might be relevant. Would love to discuss how I might be able to add value in that area. Let me know when you have time to chat. Professional, eager, non-threatening. He responded 2 hours later. Appreciate the enthusiasm. Let's focus on getting the QA framework solid first. That's where we need you. I forwarded his response to myself with a date stamp, added it to my growing documentation file. Then I did something else. I reached out to Michael Torres, the division head for risk management. We'd met a few times through the documentation committee. I sent him a casual message through our internal chat system. Hey, Michael, random question. Working on the risk assessment model project and trying to understand current stress testing approaches. Have 15 minutes sometime this week to give me a quick overview of how your team typically handles this? Trying to make sure our model aligns with your use cases. He responded within minutes. Sure, free tomorrow at 2 if that works. It worked. The meeting with Michael was supposed to be 15 minutes. It lasted 45. I asked smart questions. I listened carefully. I learned how the risk management division actually used our analytics, what gaps they saw in current approaches, what they wished we provided but didn't. At the end, Michael said, "You know, Marcus didn't mention you were doing stakeholder research for this project." Just trying to be thorough, I said. Want to make sure we build something useful. Well, this is good. Most of the analytics folks don't think to ask us what we actually need. They just build what they think we want. He paused. Send me your ideas on the stress testing methodology when you have them. I'd be interested to see what you're thinking. I sent them that evening. A detailed proposal, technically sound, directly addressing the gaps Michael had described. He responded the next morning. This is excellent. Mind if I share this with Jennifer? She's been asking about analytics integration with risk management. This is exactly the kind of thing we should be doing. Of course, I wrote back. 2 days later, Jennifer forwarded Michael's email to Marcus. The email chain was visible. My proposal was attached. Michael's enthusiasm was clear. Jennifer's message to Marcus was brief. Looks like we have some strong thinking happening on your team. Let's make sure we're leveraging this kind of initiative. Discuss in our one-on-one. Marcus called me into his office that afternoon. I saw your proposal, he said. No preamble. Michael asked for my thoughts. I sent them along. Without discussing with me first. You said to focus on QA. I did this on my own time, as professional development. Michael seemed interested, so I shared it. I didn't realize I needed approval for conversations with other division heads. Marcus stared at me. I stared back, calm, professional. Going forward, he said slowly, all external communications about the project go through me. We need coordinated messaging. Absolutely, I said. Should I loop you in on the documentation committee discussions too? We sometimes talk about methodology there. He heard the trap in that question. If he said yes, he'd look controlling. If he said no, he couldn't complain when I talked to people. Use your judgment, he finally said, but keep me informed. Will do. I left his office and went back to my desk. Sarah was watching from across the room. She walked over when Marcus's door closed. What was that about? She asked quietly. Just project coordination, I said. She studied my face. Be careful. Marcus doesn't like people coloring outside the lines. I'm staying inside all the lines, I said, That's the whole point. Over the next month, I became very good at staying inside lines while accomplishing exactly what I wanted. I delivered flawless Q&A work on the risk model project. Every report was thorough. Every deadline was met. Marcus couldn't complain about my assigned responsibilities. But I also kept developing relationships across divisions. I contributed to discussions. I shared insights. I made myself valuable to people who weren't Marcus. When Jennifer asked for a volunteer to present at an interdivision analytics summit, I volunteered immediately. Marcus couldn't say no without looking obstructive, especially since Jennifer had asked directly. I presented my stress testing methodology. It was well received. 3 division heads approached me afterward with questions. One of them was Richard Chen, Senior Vice President of Operations. Richard was important. He'd been with Cortland for 15 years, had enormous influence, and was known for identifying and promoting talent. He was also famously uninterested in politics. He cared about competence. Period. "Interesting approach," he said after my presentation. "You developed this independently?" "Yes, sir. Started as a thought exercise. Got some good feedback from risk management. Refined it from there." "What division are you in?" "Analytics. Marcus Harding's team." He nodded, filed that information away. "Good work. Keep it up." 2 weeks later, Richard emailed Marcus with a copy to Jennifer. "I'd like to borrow one of your analysts for a special project. 3-week engagement, working with operations to model our new client onboarding process. Heard good things about the stress testing work. Can you spare someone?" Marcus had no real choice. Saying no to a senior VP's request would raise questions. But I could see the calculation in his eyes when he told me. "You'll be working with operations for 3 weeks," he said. "Richard Chen requested you specifically. This is a good opportunity, but don't lose sight of your responsibilities here. The risk model project continues." "I'll manage both," I said. "See that you do." The operations project was exactly what I needed. 3 weeks of high visibility work, directly with senior leadership, completely outside Marcus's oversight. I delivered results that exceeded expectations. Richard was impressed. More importantly, he talked to people about being impressed. Word spread. When I returned to Marcus's division, something had shifted. People looked at me differently. Not as Marcus's analyst, as someone who'd proven themselves independently. Marcus felt it too. I could see it in how he ran meetings now, how he distributed work, how he responded when I spoke up. He was still my manager, still controlled my assignments and evaluations, but his authority felt less absolute. That was when I moved to Phase 2. Phase 2 wasn't about building my reputation anymore. It was about documenting Marcus's. I started paying very close attention to how Marcus reported our division's results. Every week, he sent a status update to Jennifer and the executive team. Accomplishments, metrics, project progress. I started keeping my own parallel records, what we actually delivered versus what Marcus reported, how he described team contributions, which successes he claimed and which failures he obscured. Most of it was subtle. He wasn't lying exactly. He was just framing things. A project that finished on time but had significant quality issues became delivered successfully. An analysis that I'd completed independently became team effort. A deadline we'd missed became prioritized other high-value work. None of it was fireable. All of it was normal managerial spin. But the pattern was clear when you documented it. Marcus took credit broadly and assigned blame specifically. He made himself look good at the expense of accuracy. I also started tracking something else: how much time Marcus spent actually managing versus how much time he spent managing perceptions. Our weekly one-on-ones rarely lasted more than 10 minutes. He almost never reviewed work in progress, only final deliverables. He didn't mentor, didn't coach, didn't develop his team's skills. But he spent hours on his own reports and presentations, hours networking with other managers, hours in meetings with Jennifer, where he presumably shaped narratives. He was good at looking like a good manager, less good at actually being one. I documented all of it, not with anger, not with editorializing, just facts. Dates, times, specific examples, measurable outcomes. 6 months into my tenure at Cortland, I had something comprehensive. A case study, really. How a manager could maintain a successful career through image management, while his team succeeded despite him, not because of him. I still didn't know exactly how I'd use it, but I knew the opportunity would come. It came in month 7, during our annual performance review cycle. Marcus called me into his office on a Friday afternoon. He had my review document open on his screen. Overall, solid year, he started. You've met expectations across most areas. Your technical work is strong. Your analysis is thorough. I waited. The but was coming. However, there are some areas where you need development. Communication and collaboration, primarily. You have a tendency to work in silos, to pursue your own ideas without adequate coordination with the team. It's created some friction. I kept my expression neutral. Can you give me specific examples? The stress testing methodology, the operations project. These were good initiatives, but they felt disconnected from the team's work. It's important that we maintain cohesion. I've delivered on every assignment you've given me, I said. Every deadline, every quality standard. The additional work has been on my own time and hasn't impacted my core responsibilities. It's not about deliverables. It's about being a team player, about understanding how your actions affect the broader group dynamic. He was giving me a meets expectations rating with development notes in collaboration. Not bad enough to be concerning, not good enough to justify promotion or significant raises. A perfectly calibrated review designed to keep me in place. I see, I said. Thank you for the feedback. You have potential, Marcus continued, but potential needs to be channeled appropriately. Work with the team. Trust the processes we have in place. That's how you'll grow here. I nodded, took my copy of the review, left his office. Back at my desk, I opened my documentation file, added the review, noted the date. Then I opened my email and started a new message. To Jennifer Caldwell, CC Richard Chen. Subject, Annual Review Discussion. Request for guidance. Jennifer, I completed my annual review with Marcus this afternoon and wanted to seek your guidance on some development feedback I received. I was noted as needing improvement in communication and collaboration, specifically around working in silos and pursuing independent initiatives. I want to understand this feedback better because it seems to conflict with what I understood to be valued behavior at Cortland. Over the past 7 months, I've volunteered for cross-divisional committees, built relationships with stakeholders in risk management and operations, successfully completed a special project for Richard Chen's division, contributed to multiple interdivisional initiatives. These activities were all done with strong delivery on my core responsibilities. I'm not sure how to reconcile being told I work in silos with the cross-functional engagement I've been pursuing. I'm copying Richard because he directly observed my work during the operations project and might have perspective on my collaboration approach. I'm committed to my development and want to make sure I'm getting clear direction. Would appreciate any guidance you can offer. Best regards, my name. I read it 3 times before sending. It was perfect. Respectful, professional, asking for help rather than complaining. But it forced a conversation Marcus didn't want to have. It also did something else. It made Jennifer and Richard look at my review with fresh eyes, made them ask themselves whether Marcus's assessment matched what they'd observed. I hit send at 6:47 p.m. Then I closed my laptop and went home. The weekend was quiet. I didn't check email. I went for long walks. I cooked elaborate meals. I gave myself space from what I'd set in motion. Monday morning, there were 3 emails waiting. The first was from Richard, sent Saturday morning. I'll be direct. Your collaboration on the operations project was exemplary. You worked effectively with multiple stakeholders, communicated clearly, delivered ahead of schedule. If that's what working in silos looks like, we need more of it. Happy to discuss further if useful. The second was from Jennifer, sent Sunday evening. Let's talk. Tuesday, 10 a.m., my office. The third was from Marcus, sent Monday at 6:15 a.m. We should discuss your email to Jennifer before your meeting with her. See me this morning. I didn't respond to Marcus. I responded to Jennifer, confirming our meeting, and to Richard, thanking him for his perspective. At 8:30 a.m., Marcus appeared at my desk. My office. Now. I followed him in. He closed the door. What the hell was that email? His voice was tight, controlled, but I could see the anger underneath. I was asking for development guidance, like you suggested in my review. You copied my boss and a senior VP on internal feedback. That's not asking for guidance, that's escalating. I genuinely want to understand the disconnect, I said calmly. You're telling me I work in silos. Others are telling me my cross-functional work is valuable. I need clarity on what success looks like. Success looks like following your manager's direction, not going around me every time you disagree with something. I haven't gone around you. I've followed every direction you've given me. But when I receive feedback that seems contradictory, I need to understand it. That's professional development. Isn't that what you want? We stared at each other. Marcus was trapped, and he knew it. If he told me not to seek clarity on my development, he looked like a bad manager. If he told me not to talk to other leaders, he looked controlling. If he pushed back too hard on anything I'd said, he had to defend why collaborative work was actually bad. Cancel the meeting with Jennifer, he finally said. I can't do that. She's expecting me. Then I'm attending it with you. If Jennifer wants you there, I'm sure she'll invite you. But she asked to meet with me. Marcus's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. You think you're being strategic, but you're burning bridges. You're making enemies. I'm asking questions about my development, I said. If that's making enemies, that tells me something important. I left his office. Tuesday at 10 a.m., I walked into Jennifer's office. It was just her, no Marcus. Sit, she said. I sat. Talk to me about what's really going on, she said. And I want the truth. Not politics, not careful corporate language. The truth. This was the moment. The one I'd been building toward for 7 months. I took a breath. Marcus is an effective manager of optics, I said. He delivers results, maintains relationships with leadership, and runs a division that hits its numbers. But he does it through a very specific approach. He succeeds by ensuring someone on his team is struggling. He needs contrast to demonstrate his value. Jennifer's expression didn't change. That's a significant accusation. It's an observation, and I can support it with data. I opened my laptop, showed her the documentation I'd been building. Not emotionally, not as complaint, as analysis. I showed her the pattern of public criticism for small mistakes and private acknowledgement for major accomplishments. I showed her how credit was distributed on team projects. I showed her the timeline of my Henderson report correction versus how it was presented in the team meeting. I showed her the workflow analysis, the new approval layer, the productivity impact. I showed her how my performance review feedback contrasted with feedback from other leaders I'd worked with. I showed her everything, organized chronologically, sourced with specifics, presented like the data analysis it was. Jennifer listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" "Because 6 months ago I was new. I didn't know if the problem was me or the environment. I didn't have enough data, and I didn't have enough credibility with anyone except Marcus." I paused. I needed to establish my own track record first. Otherwise, this conversation would have been one person's word against their managers. She nodded slowly. "And now?" "Now I have 7 months of documented performance. I have successful projects with other divisions. I have feedback from multiple leaders. I have data. If I'm wrong about Marcus, the data will show it. If I'm right, the data shows that too." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. "Send me everything," she finally said. "All your documentation. I'll review it." "There's one more thing you should know," I said. "I'm not the only one." I started paying attention to turnover in Marcus's division over the past 3 years. We've had 12 people leave or transfer out. That's high compared to other divisions. Exit interview notes mention cultural fit and management style consistently. "You read exit interviews?" "They're in the shared HR folder. I had access through the documentation committee." She almost smiled. "You've been thorough." "I'm an analyst. It's what I do." I left Jennifer's office and went back to my desk. Marcus was in a meeting. The division was quiet. I opened my laptop and sent Jennifer everything. 7 months of documentation. Then I archived my personal copies to external storage and deleted the local files. Whatever happened next was out of my hands. For 3 days, nothing happened. Marcus ran meetings as normal. Jennifer sent regular division updates. Work continued. Then, Thursday afternoon, Marcus was called into Jennifer's office. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When he came back, his face was carefully neutral, but his movements were stiff, controlled. He didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. Friday morning, Jennifer sent a division-wide meeting invite for Monday at 9 a.m. Mandatory attendance. Over the weekend, I let myself feel something I hadn't allowed before. Hope. Maybe this would actually work. Maybe speaking up had been the right choice. Monday morning, we gathered in the large conference room. All 12 members of Marcus's division, plus Jennifer. Marcus sat at the head of the table. Jennifer stood. "Thank you all for being here," she said. "I'm announcing some organizational changes. Effective immediately, I'll be taking direct oversight of this division while we restructure our management approach. Marcus will be transitioning to a special projects role, reporting directly to me." The room was completely silent. "These changes are being made to better align our team structure with company goals and to address some operational inefficiencies that have been identified. You'll all continue in your current roles. I'll be meeting with each of you individually over the next 2 weeks to discuss the transition." She looked at Marcus. He nodded, stood, and left the conference room without a word. After the meeting, people clustered in small groups, whispering. Sarah caught my eye. I gave her a small shrug, as if I was as surprised as everyone else. That afternoon, I had my meeting with Jennifer. "The special projects role," I said. "Is that real?" "It's real. It's also a holding pattern while we determine next steps. Marcus is a talented individual contributor. He's not effective as a people manager. We're figuring out where he fits. And the division? I'm running it personally for now. In 3 months, we'll evaluate permanent leadership structure. She looked at me directly. You're not ready for it yet. You don't have enough experience, and frankly, you need to rebuild some relationships within the team. But you're on the radar. I understand. What you did took courage, Jennifer said. It also took significant risk. If the data hadn't supported your claims, this conversation would be very different. Do you understand that? Yes. Good. Keep delivering. Keep building relationships. And next time you see a problem, come to me sooner. You don't have to build an entire case before raising a concern. I nodded. Over the next few weeks, the division slowly recalibrated. Without Marcus's need for contrast, people started collaborating differently, sharing credit, discussing mistakes openly without fear of public reprimand. Sarah admitted she'd been thinking about leaving before the restructure. Tom said he felt like he could actually breathe now. Others shared similar stories, whispering quietly in one-on-one conversations. Marcus stayed for 6 weeks in his special projects role, then accepted a position at another firm. We didn't speak again after that Monday meeting. There was nothing to say. 3 months later, Jennifer promoted me to team lead. Not division head, I wasn't ready for that, but leadership of a smaller team, with mentorship and development responsibilities. A year after I'd started at Cortland, I had my first performance review under the new structure. Jennifer gave me high marks across every category. You've grown significantly, she said. You've learned to navigate complexity, build alliances, and address problems strategically. Those are leadership skills. I had good motivation, I said. She smiled. Adversity does that. The question is what you do with it. 2 years later, I was promoted to division head, Marcus's old role, though the division had been restructured and expanded. I had 23 people reporting to me. I thought about Marcus often as I learned to manage, thought about what he'd taught me, intentionally or not. He taught me that visibility matters, that relationships matter, that data and documentation matter, that you can't wait for justice. You have to build the case for it. He also taught me what not to do, how not to lead. What happens when you make your success dependent on someone else's struggle? My team meetings looked nothing like his. When someone made a mistake, we discussed it privately, focused on learning, and moved forward. When someone did excellent work, I made sure everyone knew who'd done it. I didn't need contrast to prove my value. I didn't need cautionary tales. I just needed competent people doing good work and the wisdom to get out of their way. Sometimes I wonder if Marcus ever understood what happened, if he saw the pattern I documented, if he recognized his own methods reflected back at him. Probably not. People like Marcus rarely do. But it doesn't matter. He moved on. I moved on. The division grew and thrived. The Henderson report mistake, the one that started everything, became a story I told in management training. Not about the error itself, but about how organizations respond to errors. About the difference between accountability and humiliation. About building cultures where people can learn instead of hide. New employees sometimes ask me about my management philosophy. I keep it simple. Do good work. Help others do good work. Don't make your success dependent on someone else's failure. Everything else is details. They nod, take notes, try to extract wisdom from the simplicity. What I don't tell them is that I learned it by experiencing the opposite. That my management philosophy was shaped by 7 months of careful observation, strategic documentation, and calculated risk. That sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic at all. It's just becoming the kind of leader you wish you'd had, and making sure no one else has to build a case study to be treated fairly. Marcus taught me how power works, how it's taken, how it's used, how it's sometimes abused. But he also taught me something he didn't intend: that power used poorly eventually documents itself. You just have to be patient enough to let the pattern emerge, strategic enough to capture it clearly, and brave enough to present it when the moment comes. 5 years after that first Tuesday morning meeting where Marcus turned my small mistake into a teaching moment, I sat in Jennifer's old office. She'd been promoted to SVP, and I'd taken her role. I was reviewing performance evaluations for my division heads. One of them was struggling. Good technical skills, poor people management. Creating the kind of subtle toxicity that's hard to name, but easy to feel. I had documentation, exit interview patterns, feedback from multiple sources. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Not out of revenge, not out of anger, out of responsibility. Because I'd learned that leadership isn't about looking good. It's about making sure the people you're responsible for can do their best work without having to spend 7 months building a case for basic respect. I closed the file and scheduled the meeting. Some lessons, once learned, become obligations. That's the real ending. Not Marcus's departure, not my promotion. The moment I realized that everything he'd put me through had taught me exactly how to make sure it never happened to anyone else. Cold, quiet, satisfying, and most importantly, useful.